Hi, everyone. I see people are joining us. Welcome, guys. It's not quite 5 o'clock yet here in the mountains where I'm at, and it's almost 7 o'clock where some of you are at. Just going to give people a moment to join us. All right, we had a big class today. Hi, everyone. Very cool. Love to see. Whoa, all right. So it looks like we've got about 30 or so of you joining us. Welcome, everyone. My name is Melinda Maddox. I am the lead mixologist. Hi, Scott. Thanks for saying hello. One of the things that I hate about these classes is I can't see your face. So I love it when people do comment. Hi, Deanna. Welcome, guys. So as I was saying, my name is Melinda Maddox. Hi, Eileen. I work for Old Elk Distillery in Fort Collins, Colorado. My job is both on the production side, so I help make our delicious whiskey, and I also get to do fun classes like this and come up with delicious drinks. Today, we are going to be hitting a very near and dear cocktail to my heart, the Manhattan. And I apologize, the phone is ringing. Oh no, they want to join too. And we're going to do a couple riffs on it. So just give everybody a moment here to say hello. Hi, Heidi. We've got the Gallardas, very cool. Vera, Canada. All right, I love it. How we doing? I used to work for a Canadian restaurant called Earl's Restaurant and Kitchen and Bar, and it was awesome. I loved everybody. We've got Vin and Caitlin, Tina, Matt, Alexis, Jason Green. Hey, Jason, that's awesome. He's joined us from the Wheeling Wine and Whiskey podcast. We've done some stuff with him in the past with Old Elk, so really good to see you again, Jason. Carl and James and Stephanie and Jim, Susie Q, hello from Chicago. Susie, my middle name's Sue, so I like that. Jim and Linda, Andy, love it. Rochester, New York, got some East Coast folks joining us as well, and Carol. Hey, Jennifer, how's it going? All right, guys, well, that's pretty cool. There's a lot of you today. I'm excited. So if you're just joining, I see we've kind of jumped up a little bit in our attendees. I am with Old Elk Distillery in Fort Collins. My name is Melinda Maddox, and we are being hosted by New York Cocktail Expo, who's been really great in doing these webinars with us. They have lots of free webinars on their website. I'm going to post that here in a second. And also, if any reason you need to jump off today and you're not able to stay for the whole thing, or if you just want to revisit, the cocktails that we did, the video will be there. Hey, Sarah from Los Angeles. So I'm going to post that right now for you all. And that is the www.newyorkcocktailexpo copy of webinars in today's Manhattan class. They've also done some great things with rum in the past too that I really like. So yeah, I urge you to check it out if you're new to their format. So what are we going to be doing today? I hope that you guys have come prepared. I have a couple of different drinks we're going to do. We're going to make some Manhattans. In fact, we're going to make the best Manhattan if we were in Manhattan, in my opinion. We're going to do a classic ratio, so 2 to 1, 2 parts of our whiskey to 1 part vermouth. We're going to do a punk rock riff, so a modern take on it. And basically that means that we get to do whatever we want as long as we've got some vermouth in there and some whiskey as our base and some bitters, then we are a-okay to throw in some other things. And then we're going to do a lower ABV, which is one of my favorites when I've had a few drinks in the night and I want to still have a little more, but I don't want to have that extra. So basically we're going to reverse and have more vermouth versus our whiskey. So to get started, if you are familiar with vermouth or not, if this might be like an intro class for you, vermouth is basically wine that's been fortified with spirit and also has aromatics and spice and different fruits and herbs. And so we're going to play off that today with our whiskeys and with our garnishes. So let's get started. Let's make our classic ratio Manhattan to start. So what I'm going to do here is I've got a mixing glass. And it's okay if you don't have a mixing glass. I definitely urge you, you can make it in your glass if you're going to put it over ice. I do personally believe that you should stir a Manhattan always and never shake it. But there are some who do like a little extra froth in theirs. One of the reasons why I choose to stir, and I think most bartenders and most people who've been drinking Manhattans for a while choose to stir, is because when you shake it, you're adding air and you're adding water. And what that does is it creates a frothy, diluted drink. It also, some people might say, it bruises the alcohol. you know, what you're doing there is you're basically watering it down and just removing a lot of the flavors that you want to taste when you're tasting a Manhattan. So we're going to start by putting in our bitters, and I have Angostura orange bitters. So these guys have been making bitters for a very, very long time. In fact, they first started out as a medicinal bitter, which was meant to calm your tummy, and worked out great during Prohibition because people could still drink these. You can't drink a lot though. So one of the reasons that you can buy this in the grocery store and not show an ID is because it's not a potable bitter. So basically, if you were to try to drink like an ounce or two or like a cup of this, you would probably end up at the hospital with a very upset stomach. At the very least, you would never ever do that again, and probably not drink anything that has alcohol in it for a while. So I just did about 2 dashes of our Angostura bitters, and then I'm going to start with our Italian vermouth. So I'm choosing Italian vermouth because Italy was one of the first to be, at least to make and bottle vermouth, and they're well known for being sort of the baseline, right? So like they're the ones who have been doing it the longest and make the best. So we're going to start with a little Martini Rossi. Honestly, there's some other great brands out there as well. It's all about what's accessible to you. Our local liquor store, this is what they had today, and so that's what I wanted to play with. It's a little, you know, when it comes to Italian vermouths, they're usually a little drier, a little more spice, a little more aromatic. So I'm getting like some clove and some cinnamon. And yes, Linda, great question. Sweet vermouth is definitely what we're using today. We could do, there's something called a 50-50 or a perfect Manhattan, and that's basically when you have sweet vermouth and then also dry vermouth in there. It's definitely an acquired taste and not one that I'm going to make one for you today, but absolutely. Yes, we are doing 1 ounce of vermouth. If you're doing a shot glass, you could do 1 shot glass of vermouth, and then we're going to do 2 parts of our whiskey. So I'm choosing to mix with our Old Elk rye whiskey. You could also make this with bourbon, or if you have a different rye at home, I'd be kind of curious to see what people are mixing with. Our Old Elk rye is a 95% rye, 5% malted barley. So it's very spicy. It's one of the classic ratios. Greg Metz, our master distiller, has been sort of the master of rye for a very long time, and this is his recipe that he doesn't deviate from. I see Carl's mixing with Rittenhouse. He might switch to Knob Creek. I approve, Carl. I like it. Let's switch it up a little bit. We've got some Woodford Reserve in there from Kathy. Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and do 2 parts of this. If you remember, we did 1 ounce of the sweet vermouth, just making sure I get all of my drops out of there. Now, if I want to be fancy, I can pour this twice. I'm going to do that so I can show off a little jiggering for you guys. This is a jigger. If you're not familiar with this at home, you could use, as I said, a shot. Whoop. Oh boy, somebody's got messy fingers. And you know what? We're going to start that over because I just want you to see what control looks like here. So 1 ounce and then another ounce. So 2 ounces total of our Old Elk rye whiskey. Added to the 1 ounce of vermouth, sweet vermouth, our 2 dashes of orange bitters. And then I'm going to go ahead and stir this up a little bit. And if you guys can hear that at home, nice little tinkling of the ice. Again, so I'm not shaking my cocktail, right? No harm in that. If you come into my bar and you ask me to shake your cocktail, the Manhattan, I'll do it for you. But if you come to my house, I'll probably stir it for you. Trish is also going to be working with bullets today. Tina, you got the Old Elk. That's awesome. Yes, and I'm going to be working with the 5-year bourbon for our next cocktail, the Punk Rock Manhattan. So don't feel left out. We will bring that in. So I just stirred that maybe about 20 times. Everybody has a different way of stirring. If you're new to using a stirring spoon and a mixing glass, one of the things you can do is take your fingers, so 2 behind and 2 in front, and then kind of just have the back of your spoon against the glass, and then pull with the top and push with the bottom. Pull, push, and go around the glass. Don't look at it or think about it too much because you'll definitely find yourself overthinking it and then not doing it as well. So I'm choosing to go into a coupe style cocktail glass. And with the rye that we used, this was 100 proof, so a little on the boozier side. I could add a little more vermouth if I found that to be too high proof for me, or if I wanted to sweeten it up a little bit. And I love that Vin is going to be using the Bias Sweet Vermouth. Awesome. Vin, we will get to that in just a few minutes. Well, a little bit longer than that, because we're going to enjoy this cocktail. So classic, we're not messing with the standard recipe here. We know that we have a delicious base spirit of our Old Elk Rye. You guys have some great whiskeys at home. And then the Sweet Vermouth is going to just kind of play with that rye. It's going to be a little spicier. It's going to be a little drier. If you're working with bourbon, then you're going to find that's maybe a little sweeter. And I'm going to do an orange twist and a cherry on mine because I want to be a little decadent. So what I'm doing with my little orange twist here, if you don't have a peeler, you can cut it. And then what you do is you take with the skin side, the inside of the skin towards me or yourself, and then the outside skin side that looks a little more shiny towards you. And then when you squeeze it, poof, you're going to get a little expel of all of the citrus oils. So if you look at this really closely, you can almost see them on the fruit peel. For the purposes of this drink, we are not going to leave it in because I don't want to add any extra bitterness. I know that my rye is going to be nice and spicy. I could leave the peel in there, and what that's going to do is it'll just continue to extract some of the oils and some of those fruit flavors. But I am going to finish it with a little cherry in there. And if you're fancy, you might have some maraschino cherries at home. So because we measured, this fits perfectly into our glass. But again, if you're eyeballing it at home, then 2 parts whiskey to 1 part sweet vermouth, and then a couple dashes of Angostura orange or Angostura regular. All right, if you guys made this at home, I'd love for you to try it with me. It's good. It's good Manhattan. And not just because I made it. Scott's asking, have I ever marinated my cherries? I have, Scott. Yes, we actually have. Well, I get a little weird, and so I'll take my cherries and I'll marinate them in other things besides whiskey. So I've marinated mine in grappa before. I actually have a chocolate whiskey that I'm really fond of, so I marinated some of those in there just to make like a candied cherry almost. I think I might give them out as Christmas gifts this year. Jim's saying he likes it with the orange bitters. I agree, Jim. There's a lot of purists out there who definitely argue that orange bitters is the only kind of bitter that you must put in your Manhattan. I remember back in the day, the first time I started bartending, we didn't have orange bitters. I don't think we had any bitters. We only had a little sugar, simple syrup on the gun. And then we would muddle our fruit, just kind of was basically, they like taught us how to make a Manhattan the same way that they taught us how to make an old fashioned. And so the only thing that was different was you served one up and you served one down. And this one had like a splash of vermouth that was sitting on the back bar for who knows how many years. And I honestly don't blame anybody for ever returning that cocktail to me because, you know, it wasn't a good drink. And that's something that I think is also important to stress. If you have vermouth at home, put it in the fridge, guys. It will hold there for a couple months, depending on how often you open it. So, you know, if you're making a Manhattan every couple of weeks, you should be able to get a couple months use out of that. And you'll be able to tell when it goes, when it starts to kind of lose its flavor. It'll get more bitter, a little sour, I get some funky flavors. This is delicious. This is a brand new open bottle. So what do you guys think of your Manhattans? Jim's loving his orange bitters. Kathy says hers is really good. Love it. Caitlin, no judgment. She says her vermouth is 6 months old. Caitlin, that's okay. Has it been sitting on the windowsill in the sun? You might want to get you another bottle of that. The cool thing about, so the Martini Rossi brand is very dry, in my opinion. It's not as fruit forward as some of the other Italian vermouths out there. You could get Carpano. It's going to be a little sweeter and more vanilla spice kind of flavor to it. Delicious as we're heading into this fall cold weather. Hopefully, I know it's been pretty hot for everybody, but this is not, you know, it's affordable. This was $5, so very easy. You know, to spend that $5 and have a delicious cocktail at home. Carpano is a little more expensive. Tina's using Dylan vermouth. Stephanie, I agree. So she says the citrus is a nice touch. Absolutely. I think that having that on there just kind of brightens it up a little bit. And again, kind of just the flavor just kind of goes, which is really nice for me. Jim Ruddock is using Carpana Antigua. Awesome, Jim. One of my favorite go-tos. Luxardo cherries all the way. Love it. If you guys haven't heard of Luxardo cherries, so they are an Italian cherry, excuse me, that they basically soak in maraschino, and it's delicious. It's very sweet. They're very rich, and they're very expensive, but they are good. They're a good treat. All right, Ben's got Carpano and Luxardo. Trebano is a great sweet vermouth. Awesome. Donna's got some Punta Maize. I wonder if Donna's a bartender. Punta Maize is a much more jammy, dark, sweet vermouth. Tends to be a little more bitter at the same time too. And a lot of bartenders will use that in place of other sweet vermouths because it's got a lot of interesting kind of weird flavors that people maybe want to experiment with. Joseph's using a little cherry juice. That's a great point. So Joseph, we have a little bit of cherry juice in our cherry dish here. If I wanted to sweeten this up or even add like a little more of a rich component to it, I could pour in a little bit of the cherry juice as well. Awesome, guys. How are we feeling? Are we wanting to mix up a little punk rock variation here? I am. I'm feeling a little punk rock. Otherwise, I might drink this whole one. It's been a Monday. I will say thank you guys for joining us on a Monday. You know, sometimes the weekend you don't want it to end, so I appreciate you joining our happy hour here with all of us at Old Elk Distillery and with New York Cocktail Expo. Cheers, Matt, to drinking whole Manhattans. Yes. All right. Stephanie says, let's go. All right. So Stephanie, we're going to make our modern riff on a Manhattan. And I call this modern because we're basically going to take some creative leeway with it. Essentially because we're still going to have our bitters in there. We're still going to have our sweet vermouth. And we're going to have our base spirit of bourbon this time. So Old Elk Bourbon, the 5-year, our flagship. So it's a 34% malted barley, 51% corn, which it has to have that 51% minimum to be corn, and then 15% rye. So it's still got a good like spice kick from the rye. But I chose this one because we're going to go a little off the norm here, and I'm going to mix with some chartreuse in mine. Oh, hey, Carl. nice to see you on the screen. So I'm going to actually chill this glass just to show you a couple different methods and ways. If you're entertaining at home, if you're making cocktails at home, a nice touch that you can do whenever you're going to serve a cocktail up is to add ice to it and then just let that chill while you're making your cocktail. And this way, as people are enjoying their cocktails, they're getting that nice vibrant coldness, but they're not getting any dilution. And it's just a nice touch you could do to be a little more extra special. So this is our Old Elk Bourbon. This is the one I'm going to be mixing with. If you've got any sort of standard bourbon there, somebody had a Gentleman Jack. I think the Gentleman Jack would be a really great, I'm excited to see it with this one, but I think it's going to be delicious with the Via, which is the American sort of modern twist we're going to do with the reverse Manhattan. So Tina is asking about our awesome pour spouts. Tina, you got to come to the tasting room here in Fort Collins. Sometimes we do a flash sale online too. We used to do, sometimes we'll do a giveaway, sometimes we'll do competitions. So I don't know, stick around. Maybe we'll give away a couple Elkhead pours to those with the best recipes and posts. Speaking of, if you make your cocktail today and you want to share it with us, you can post on our social media. So oldelkbourbon.com or Old Elk Bourbon is our handle for Instagram and then Facebook. And then New York Cocktail Expo, I believe, is still NYC Cocktail Expo on Instagram as well too. So post your pictures and tag us, and who knows, maybe we'll do a little thing. We got some time still. All right, so I'm going to add ice to my mixing glass. And at home, I don't expect all of you to have chartreuse. This wasn't necessarily on our ingredient list, but if you have any other sort of liqueur, if you have Campari, if you have Luxardo, if you have a vanilla liqueur, thank you, Matt. He is sharing our handles there for you all to see. Hey, Mary Beth. I'm so happy you're on. So great to see some of these names on the screen. I missed you guys. A lot of you are my East Coast peeps from before Fort Collins. All right, Carl's got his chartreuse ready. So we are going to be working with our green chartreuse. I have a little baby bottle because as much as I love chartreuse, when I have it in a smaller amount, I don't drink as much. And this is an expensive product. But again, like I said, if you have like Tuaca, which is a vanilla liqueur, Chambord works, Alexis, that's great. So the Chambord, Alexis, for you, I'm going to say do half of what I do with the green chartreuse, so that you only get like a hint of the berry in there and it doesn't overpower it and make it really sweet. Linda, you have elderflower? Absolutely. There's a couple different brand names out there for elderflower, Linda. So if you have the Saint Germain, I'd say go ahead and stick with the ½ ounce that I'm going to use. So just copy what I do. And if you have a different brand, I might say go a ¼ ounce or half the amount, just because some of those other brands tend to be a little more sweet and not have as much of that elderflower, white flower flavor to it. So we will get to mixing. All right, so for this one, I'm going with some cocoa bitters from Angostura. I am personally very excited about these. There's something new that they started doing last year. And I really think that every bitter that Angostura makes, did some heavy 3 dashes there, are delicious. And they all kind of do their own thing. So the Angostura, their classic one, kind of pulls things together, can really like dry out a cocktail, but also if you're like missing something, you're like, I don't know what I need. I just need something in here. Always go to bitters. And with the cocoa, they're very dry. They're not a sweet chocolate. That's why I went with 3 of those. And again, it's just going to pull together and add like a nice hint. Jennifer, you've got Tuaca. Let's go with a ½ ounce of your Tuaca. So just follow right along. Tina, yes, we're going to do half of this. Kathy, what do you got on your shelf? I love this game. I wish you could see people's bars. If you've got anything that's like a liqueur or a bitter or an Amaro, what else? What else you got out there, guys? Some schnapps? Okay, what flavor? As long as it's not peppermint, I think we can work with that. Grand Marnier works. Grand Marnier, let's do a ½ ounce, Michelle. Campari is great. Campari is delicious. Heidi, it's up to you. I'd say either ½ ounce or 0.75, 3/4 of an ounce, depending on how bitter you want your cocktail to be. Kathy's got apricot. Perfect, Kathy. I'd say a ½ ounce as well. Apricot's a great flavor for this time of year. So there's a ton of variation. So you've got some Saint Germain, some of you've got some orange liqueurs, some of you have vanilla liqueurs. I love it. So the chartreuse that I have is going to be really herbal. Montenegro, perfect on it. Let's do a ½ ounce as well. That's one of my favorites. And if I wasn't mixing with the chartreuse today, I might be working with my Montenegro as well. Okay, so the modern riff, do a little punk rock twist here, because we're going to go get a little crazy with our Manhattan. We're going to do those couple dashes of bitters, and you can use whatever you want. I chose chocolate because I want that to be a little warming cooking spice in there and to bring out some of the other herbs in the chartreuse. And then I'm going to go with a ½ ounce of the chartreuse. And you all at home are going to go with a ½ ounce as well, unless you have a really sweet liqueur that you're working with, and then you're going to do half of it. So I poured that in. And then we are going to go, we're actually going to do our vermouth next. So when you're making a cocktail, I always like to start with the smallest ingredient and then also sort of the least precious or most expensive. So I really like the chartreuse. I know I'm not going to mess up that ½ ounce, but if I was making a cocktail and I was worried about spillage or cost, I might just do that one at the very end because the chartreuse is really expensive. So I'm doing 1 ounce of vermouth. Mary, you can totally do for Franca, yes. For Mary, I would say let's do a ½ ounce too. It'll work. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Galliano, yes. Bartender ketchup. It doesn't get used very often. Kathy and Ed, let's do a ½ ounce of the Galliano. I think you're gonna love it in there. Galliano is actually a really interesting spirit, super kind of herbal and vanilla, and just you see this tall, crazy bottle on people's back shelves, and doesn't often get used. But when you add it to things like a classic drink like a Manhattan, there's also a Harvey Wallbanger that's, when done right, can be most delicious. I think Dante in New York might have had a Harvey Wallbanger or like a riff of that on their menu for a while. Galliano and a G&T is perfect. All right, so if you're following, we did a ½ ounce of the green chartreuse. an ounce of sweet vermouth, and we chose to go with Dolan for this one. I'm choosing French. So if you are playing around with your vermouths, we're going to play with a French vermouth. Vera, riff. Sorry, I'm getting excited. Like our take, my take, your take. Basically, like taking, so like we're doing a riff right now on a Manhattan, and the base bone, like the base, bones are there for a Manhattan. We've got our whiskey, we've got our vermouth, we've got our bitters, but then we're going to riff on it by adding the green chartreuse. And then I'm going to do 1.5 ounces of bourbon. So if you're at home using bourbon, go 1.5 ounces. If you're using rye, go 1.5 ounces. Like a bass guitar solo in a song. Yeah, it's your song, guys. I love it. And then we're going to do another 1/2 ounce. So I did 1 ounce already, and another 1/2 ounce. We're going to give this a little stir like we did before. I'm going to add a little ice. I don't know if you guys can see, but how the liquid is almost can't even tell that there's ice in here. And so I'm going to add more ice. And the reason for that is because ice plays a really big role in a cocktail. And with this one, if I don't add more ice, it's just going to get kind of watered down and not cold fast enough. So by adding more ice, you might think it's going to get more watered down, but it's actually going to get less watered down and stay colder. And the reason for that is the ice has more ice to hit up against, and there's less room for it to kind of do its melting thing. All right. Leanne, those recipes were not included, but we'll make sure that you can either watch this again. So I will type that in here again, Warren, in case you're looking right now. This is going to be the webinar for you to check out at the end. It'll be recorded. And then we can also follow up with email and send out these recipes specifically. You're welcome, Leanne. My pleasure. All right, so I'm going to empty my ice here. Got a nice frosted glass now. Or my punk rock Manhattan in here, and it's kind of got a nice little green hue to it. Fun fact, green chartreuse is the only liqueur to be named after a color. All right, it's a little lighter than the other one. And then for this one, I'm going to do an orange twist again. And so I did that thing again where I have the peel, the skin out towards you, and then the pith is towards me, and just squeezed it really fast. And I am running it around the edge. I'm not doing the white side, I'm doing the sort of oily orange side. The reason for that is this white side has more bitter flavor on it. And sometimes people are really sensitive to that as well. So if you do that, it's just gonna be bitter. It's not gonna get any of the oils, and it's not gonna have that nice kind of orange component aromatic to it. All right, and then I think I'm gonna do a little rosemary on mine because I want a little more of the aromatic of the rosemary. Jim, are you, Carl and Jim, are you guys sharpieing those recipes on your bottles? I'm curious. So I just did a little sprig of rosemary in there. If you have some thyme at home or some sage though, that could work really nicely too. Again, we're not all mixing with the same, liqueur or modifier. So, aha, dates opened. Yes, absolutely. Doing that's going to tell you, you might forget time flies. We're all busy. We have things going on. And also for bottles of homemade syrups, absolutely. I don't know about you all, but every trash day I have to go through my fridge and basically walk a walk of shame of what did I leave in there, what did I not use. And all the things on the condiment side, my syrups and everything else, they tend to not get thrown out until I realize there's something else in there besides the syrup, a little something grown. All right, so I've got a really aromatic, kind of vibrant herbal Manhattan. That one's, it's very herbal. It's very dry. It's not quite, it doesn't quite identify as a Manhattan, like the first Manhattan did for me, because it has so much kind of going on with the green chartreuse and the bitters and the rosemary. But it is a really refreshing and delicious fall Manhattan. Joseph's asking about lining his Manhattan with sugar. Joseph, I think that depends. Do you want it to taste like, Well, do you want a little bit of that sugar kind of crunch on your glass? Do you want a little more sweetness in your cocktail? You know, it's all up to you. Flavor is subjective. That's the best thing about cocktails and making cocktails. You know, it's great to learn, you know, the history and sort of the education parts of different spirits and how they're made and where they come from. But at the end of the day, it's like cooking. You get to be the interpreter of how it tastes to you and how you want it to be made. So yeah, if you want a little sugar on your Manhattan, go for it. Maybe do like a sugar kind of cherry sugar or something. That could be delicious. So you'd rim your glass with a little bit of cherry juice and then a little bit of sugar. I might not go all the way around. I might just do like a little section. That way I have the option of drinking my cocktail with the sugar or without, because things will, as you're drinking it, it'll change it. Heidi's asking if the recipes will be available. Yes, Heidi, they will, definitely. And Kathy, this is our, so this is our modern, our punk rock Manhattan. And you get to name your own Manhattans at home because everybody was mixing with different stuff. So Ed and Kathy said that the Galliano is great. Gives it a lovely, nutty, and buttery taste. That's awesome. That's one of the coolest things about Galliano. You never know how it's gonna taste until you mix it up with the drink. And it doesn't, like, what it tastes like in the bottle is not the same as what you actually get when you put it into a cocktail. All right, so the next one that we're gonna do is called Reverse Manhattan. And we're working with basically taking the ratios. So our formula of 2 parts of whiskey to 1 part vermouth, we're gonna flip it on its head. We're gonna do 2 parts vermouth to 1 part whiskey. And this is a lower ABV, so lower alcohol by volume. And it's a great way to stretch that last cocktail out for the night, and also play around with some vermouth. So if you have an American made produced vermouth, I have some Via here. I only have a little bit left, so I had to leave the bottle at home and bring a little bit for myself. But you can drink this stuff. So the Via is from California. It's super kind of herbal. It doesn't have that same punch to it that some of the Italian vermouths to have, and it doesn't have that same kind of like dryness that a French vermouth has to it. And there's a little more interpretation. So I think this is a great vermouth because, and we're using sweet again. It has a little more herbal component. I almost think that you can kind of drink it on its own, honestly, if you wanted to just have a nice little aperitif of something before dinner or even after dinner if you are digesting and want something that's a little lower alcohol. Typically around 14 to 18% alcohol. So, you know, if we're working with our bourbon here that's 88 proof, the vermouth is much, like less than a quarter of that. So by flipping these ratios, we now have a lower alcohol cocktail, and it's delicious. You still get a little bit of the bourbon and bite from that, but it also balances it out really nicely. I'm gonna put this cocktail right over here. I should have invited more friends. I can't drink all these by myself. All right, so I'm going to rinse out my mixing glasses. I have a sink and I'm in a bar, but if you're not, I'll give you a moment here to do that. How's everybody's second Manhattan's tasting? Tina recommends a straw in your Manhattan. It's up to you, honestly, folks. Hi, Christy. Hey, that's my neighbor. She's right across the street. She owns Four Brothers here in Fort Collins. Great to see you, Christy. And USBG, Boston. Hey, where are you hopping on a plane to? Guys, I'm getting envious. Can I just come visit all of you instead? This is great. Thanks for joining in. So we're going to take this Reverse Manhattan, and I'm going to do the chocolate bitters again because I think they're going to be really nice with the aromatics and the fruit and the Via. And I'm only going to do 2. So I'm just going to go 1 and then 2. That's it. And then the vermouth is what we're going to be adding last because it's the biggest amount. And for our whiskey, we're going to go 1 ounce. And I'm using the bourbon. If you're using rye, you might even want to bump up if you're using the Via or another sweet vermouth that's from the US. I would even go up a little more, so like 2.5 times the amount of of the whiskey. So 2.5 ounces, maybe even 3, just because the rye is going to have like a much stronger, spicier backbone. So you want to make sure that you are still, it's just kind of a hint back there. It's not the showcase, it's not the highlight of the drink. Really the vermouth is going to be your star, and then the whiskey just comes behind to kind of be the supporting actor. So we're going to do 2 ounces of the Vaya. Carl, I did the cocoa bitters again because I'm using the Vaya and I know that I like that flavor in there. But if you had some smoked bitters at home or some spice bitters, Earl Grey tea bitters are really great. Hey, Janet, welcome from Austin. Vaya, I'm going to write that out for you, Fran. So VY and A, and it's from California. My computer is really far away, sorry, guys. All right, so we're gonna give this a little stir. And I might even, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my orange peel. And rather than putting it on the top of the drink, I'm gonna put it into the drink. So sometimes if I want a little fruity component, but I don't want it to be like citrusy, I'll do this. So I'm gonna expel my orange twist in there. I'm just pinching it between my fingers and then quick little pinch in there. And you can kind of like sprayed it with all the oils. And I'm going to put it into the actual ice with the cocktail. So it's going to add a little hint of bitterness and a little more pith flavor as well. I'm going to stir this about 20 times. Sure, that's a great question. Angostura, their bitters, so I'll show you. I don't have, just not a bottle close by. But Angostura bitters, not their orange, not their cocoa, just the classic, their standard. I would use that. It's called Angostura Aromatic Bitters. Comes in a sort of white bottle, the little red and yellow label. And I would recommend those. They're the best all around. You can put them in an old fashioned. You can put them in your Manhattan. You can even put them in a crazy drink called a Trinidad Sour, which is where you make, you take mostly bitters, the aromatic Angostura bitters, and then almond syrup and citrus and rye whiskey. And the bitters become the actual base. So you're putting like an ounce of that in there to even a little bit more for some people. And it's awesome. It's very spicy, very sweet, almost tropical and dry at the same time. Carl is recommending, Vera, that you get lots of different bitters. They don't go bad. So you have them on hand. You don't need to put them in the fridge. You don't need to date them. As long as they're capped and sealed, they really will last for quite a long time. I probably have as many bitters as I do bottles of booze, just because I like to experiment, and they can be a great way to really change up a drink without having to spend a ton of money on a bottle that you might never drink again. So Peychaud's are great. Robin's asking about those. They have a little more of like an anise and floral component to them. No, bitters don't need to go in the fridge, Linda. You're all good. You can just put them right on the shelf with your books, with your booze. You're good there. USBG Boston. Shots of Ango, only good if you really have a bellyache, and only a little tiny one, because if you go too much, you're gonna have a bigger bellyache. That is very much a bartender's sort of play a prank on you kind of thing. Chocolate is delicious in Mezcal. Tina, I actually do a split base is what it's called. So I'll do 1 ounce of Mezcal and 1 ounce of bourbon, chocolate bitters, and then a little chocolate liqueur with the sweet vermouth, and it's so good. It's delicious. I recommend it for sure. Jim uses walnut. Those are also great bitters to use. And Eileen, Earl Grey bitters, I get mine on Amazon, actually. There's a bitter company out of Miami that makes them. So that's where I get mine from. Sometimes you have to, resort to that to get what you want. I'm going to drop a little cherry in here too, because this drink just looks a little lonely by itself. But the color is great. It's a little more pinkish hue. And I feel very Mad Man-ish Mod Squad with this cocktail in hand. Ooh, told you I might like that one the most. So yeah, this was our reverse Manhattan. We did 2 parts of the domestic Via vermouth and then 1 part of our bourbon. and 2 dashes of the chocolate bitters, the cocoa bitters in here. And I love it. And I also threw in that little orange twist. All right, so Vera's got some challenges for us. Let's hang out for a minute, guys. We've got some drinks to drink. And this is a great time now. If you wanna throw your challenge questions up on there, we can see what we can come up with. And if you have any questions about our spirits that we used today or the recipes, or just looking for inspiration in general for other cocktails, love to share those with you. So Vera has a pickled beet juice. I mean, it depends on how pickled it is, but beet's pretty good. It's kind of bitter, it's earthy. Here's the thing, you don't have to put 3 ounces of the pickled beet juice in there. You can do a 1/2 ounce and balance it out. I would probably go with the Carpano, so an Italian, like big, robust, that's slightly sweet and more baking spices with the vanilla. And I would use that, or I would use, gosh, help me out here, guys. What are some other big, bold vermouths that you've had that you really like? Somebody mentioned Punta Maize earlier. That's a great one. So you could do a little more, like 1/2 ounce of that beet juice, ounce of the Punta Maize, and then 1.5 ounces of your bourbon. And I think it would be pretty darn good, actually. Yes, there is a book out there called Bitters, and it's a great book if you want to get into making them, if you want to explore some other bitters. Also gives a nice history as well, too. Somebody said, Carl, Muzz? How do you say that? Where is that from? I've never heard of it. I love it. I'm going to check it out. Somebody's asking, you guys are going too fast. Too fast. All right, so let's see. Let's go back up here a little bit. Is there a secret formula from Jennifer Hill of liquor to liqueur to juice to make a great cocktail out of whatever you have in hand? Yes, Jennifer, I would say you always want to start with the smallest amount of juice and then add to it. It depends on the juice. There's a drink called a scofflaw. It's a really great sort of mix between a Manhattan and a whiskey sour. So that's a great one to, there's that word again, riff off of, take it as inspiration. So the scofflaw cocktail originated during Prohibition because they had these speakeasies and people came up with all kinds of words to get into them. And one of the words that they came up with was scofflaw. So that was the secret password to get into the cocktail bar, to the speakeasy, because you were scoffing at the law. And I think it's a great cocktail. It has, let's see if I'm remembering the recipe correctly here. It has 1.5 ounces to like 1.25 ounces of whiskey, and then it has 1 ounce of sweet vermouth and 1/2 ounce of lemon. And I want to say, what am I missing? Matt might be able to help me out here. It's been a while. I haven't had a scofflaw in a while. There's grenadine. What am I missing? I feel like Mary Beth can answer this for me too. She knows it's one of my favorites. Or USBG Boston. Come on, guys, help me out here. I'm having a happy hour brain fog right now. It's a great recipe though. So Jennifer, I would say look up the scofflaw cocktail. I'll type that in for you. It's SCOFLAW. Spelled a little funnier than that. Thank you, Matt. All right, so Matt's got a little drier recipe. He's calling for 2 ounces of whiskey, 1 ounce of dry vermouth, and 1/4 ounce of lemon juice. I usually put a little more lemon juice in mine and a little less whiskey. That's just me. And then I think I usually do more grenadine too. So it tends to be like a fruitier, sweeter, but dry at the same time because of that extra citrus. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. Let's see. Somebody's asking about the mezcal and bourbon. About 1/2 ounce chocolate liqueur. There's a couple different good ones out there. There's so many craft distilleries that have come up with their own different chocolate liqueurs. I'd recommend just finding something local. There's also a spiced pepper one it's called Ancho Reyes. That's a great one. And that's going to play off the mezcal in that drink, Donna. Vera's asking another idea for class with the cold weather coming up, a hot drink that is spiked. We got all kinds. We got hot toddies. We make a hot Sazerac with rye whiskey and passion bitters and lemon, and then we do a whipped cream on it. It's delicious. Vera's having trouble. Oh yeah, I forget you're from Canada. Yeah, so you've got a few challenges up there. when it comes to spirits, and getting 90 proof alcohol is very difficult. That used to be true in some other parts of the country as well here. You could always go into distilling. There's something to be said for a little backyard distilling. Averna's great. Koki vermouth. Somebody's asking if Manhattans, Kathy, are you asking if they're ever served over ice? They can be. If you have a more robust, bigger, sweeter, jammy vermouth, like that Carpano or that Punta Maiz, then you could definitely serve it over ice. You just don't want to start ahead of time for very long, or even at all. Just make it right in the glass with the ice and then stir it over that ice. Otherwise, it'll get really, really watered down. And that kind of defeats the purpose of your drink, I think. We've got some matches. Jim's asking, what are the matches from the tool list? Oh my gosh, I forgot all about them. I also forgot my matches. I was hoping you wouldn't ask, Jim. Well, so let me show you guys. I do have a blowtorch. So might get a little crazy in here. I'm gonna grab a cutting board. I'm gonna grab a knife because we need a really thick piece of citrus peel. All right, so Jim's asking, what were the matches for? The matches are for doing a little flamed twist. And the trick here is to get some citrus skin, but not get any of the fruit. So I'm just gonna cut until I get the perfect piece. There we go. All right, so this is like a really thick piece of orange citrus. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, a little flame, might get a little crazier. I'm gonna take I'm actually gonna do my modern Manhattan. So I think the chartreuse and the herbs in there are gonna be really nice. And then if I had a match, I would just kind of like warm it up a little bit in front. And then you want to squeeze it. And with the matches, you should usually get like kind of like a big woof. With the blowtorch, it's a little harder because it's more concentrated and it's really, really hot. But what that did is it basically kind of caramelizes a little bit and also smokes the citrus. And so now I have a nice smoky citrus. It's not too late if anybody wants to play around with that, unless you drink your whole Manhattan already, then it might be a little too late. All right, we got some new messages here, guys. HS, yes, absolutely. We will have this on this spot right here for you. You go to this link, you can see the recording and pause and make the drink along with us. Thank you, Matt. Today is the last day to get $15 off of your Old Elk purchase. You can use promo code EXPO2021, and that is on Old Elk Shipped, which is great. If you go to oldelk.com, oldelkbourbon.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, there's a store locator as well. So that'll tell you if there's any stores close to you that have our bourbon or our rye, or some of our other spirits. We're now doing some other fun things as well too. And the thing that you might not know is if you request at your local liquor store, if it's your place where you go and you ask them to bring something in, they're most likely going to bring it in, because at the end of the day, they want to sell you what you want, and they're happy to have that. It doesn't, it's typically all you got to do is say like, hey, where's that Old Elk bourbon? We need it here. I agree. Smoked drinks rock. I'm so sorry, guys, that I almost forgot about the smoke. Thanks for the reminder. We've got a chocolate Manhattan up here. Love it. Jim's got 2 ounces of whiskey, 3/4 ounces of vermouth blanc, 1/4 ounce of creme de cacao, and orange bitters. Perfect. That's a great build there. So Jim just did a 2 ounce whiskey, 3/4 ounce vermouth, and then 1/4 ounce of creme de cacao with the orange bitters. And that's like a very go-to awesome formula for a good Manhattan, in my opinion. Definitely recommend that. Thanks, Ben, for checking out our bourbon in Denver. Great to hear you're close by. The rye is not as well, I'd say, out there as much as others, and we want to change that. So thank you for asking about it. And it's one of those ones that just ask your local store. Joseph, do you recommend making more than one at a time? Typically in Manhattan, or cocktails in general, no. Usually I drink one and then I make another one, and then I drink it and then I make another one. For the purpose of not hanging out, we could do this, but it'd be about an hour and a half, 2 hours probably, maybe 3, depending on how fast some of us are drinking. That would be maybe a recipe for disaster. You guys can see me, I can't see you, so I guess you could be dancing on the table or the bar top, wherever you are, and it would be okay. I think Tina, you're enjoying your Manhattan. Thank you guys. So again, really appreciate you tuning in for our Manhattan class. This is one that we will be doing again in the near future of maybe Repeal Day or so. And Matt has been very gracious to host us on the New York Cocktail Expo a couple times now. We love working with him. He does some great things. He's really supportive of the bartender industry, and also just brands that he believes in and works with. And he's done a great job with Old Elk Bourbon. So thank you, Matt. Thanks guys for hanging in and making some Manhattans with me today. Cheers, guys. I'm going back to my modern whisk because I've got that nice burnt fire drink on there. Bonnie, you are welcome anytime. Happy Monday, everybody. Miss your faces, those of you who I know personally, and those of you who I don't know personally. I'd love to get to know you more. So follow us on Old Elk Bourbon on our social media. Follow The Reserve by Old Elk. That's our tasting room social media. So I'm on there a little more often just because it's, well, one, I manage it, and two, that is a cocktail focus where we really talk about the spirits. Gio, I thought that might be you, but I don't want to call it out and have it be somebody else. I know Carol moved, so I was thinking it was Gio. Gio, miss you, bud. Take care. You're doing a great job. We miss you out here, and we want to see your face one of these days. HS, I received the email. It only has the recipe, not the recording. I think Matt will be able to help with that for sure. If not, I will. And as I said, guys, I would love to see your pictures of your Manhattans. I don't know what the criteria will be, but share them, and we'll pick a few and send you our Elk Head Speed Pour. This guy's great, fits in any bottle, but you really should have an Old Elk Bourbon bottle, and does work really well in wine as sort of an aerator, so it'll add a little air to it. But this is great. I'll send you guys some. Say thanks for chilling today on a Monday with us, and very important, Matt saying tag at Old Elk Bourbon at New York Cocktail Expo. Those two things will make sure that we actually get to see them and bring them right up to the top. All right, cheers everyone. Happy Monday.